Bereit, National Director of 40 Days for Life, and I am a big believer in the power of stories. There's nothing more powerful than a story. Stories can change lives, and stories can save lives. And that's why I'm excited today to be with two women I deeply respect, Lisa Kratz and Kathy Gray. And we're here to talk about an amazing story that's part of a new project that they are working on, something that's very unique and something that's very, very powerful. It's a groundbreaking new book, and we're here to talk about it today, and I'm very excited to share this with you. So, Kathy, let's start with you really quickly. So what is this book? What's it all about?
Well, David, it's called Derailed, and it's the story of three separate lives, three true stories of three separate lives who have all been affected and derailed from their original destiny, their God-given destiny, because each of us was born with a destiny from God. And they're derailed through deception, through abuse, through rejection, through murder, and even national conspiracy. And what's unique about this book is it also shows how this mechanism works in everybody's life, not just these stories. The stories in and of themselves are fascinating, but it also offers hope because all three lives were put back on track and they find their destiny through truth and through forgiveness.
So Lisa, take us back a little ways. What was the initial impetus for starting this project in the first place?
Well, it's really quite interesting. Kathy and I had a radio show we did for 2 years. It was This Is Your Life, Courage to Change. And we interviewed numerous people about the courage that they used in their life to overcome adversity. And 1 month we had a Sanctity of Life month. And in fact, that's when we met you for the very first time and interviewed you. But to kick off that month, we had an interview with a woman who had a personal interview with Dr. Bernard Nathanson. And I was talking to her and she was explaining what exactly Dr. Nathanson's role was in the culture of death in America. She went to describe how he and NARAL used, NARAL, the National Association for the Repeal of Abortion Laws, and this was years back, but how they utilized lies, propaganda, and a marketing campaign to literally turn the hearts of people towards abortion. And what they did was they said that Americans were for abortion, that the Catholic Church, that really the Catholics were for abortion, but the Catholic hierarchy was what was inhibiting people to really get on board with abortion. They used a campaign such as, it's a woman's right to choose, that your baby is really nothing more than a mass of cells, that is nothing but tissue, that nothing has actually formed yet. So as my guest was telling this story, I had a literal epiphany, and my microphone was quiet, which if anybody who knows me, that just doesn't happen. And I started to go back in my mind, and I started to remember my past. And I immediately recalled that I was brought to this idea that I had bought every single lie that Nathanson and his NARAL buddies peddled. I had fallen for all of those things. They also used statistics. They took statistics and they amplified them by 10 times. So they were saying that a certain percentage of women were having abortion and back alley abortions when in fact it wasn't true at all. And so in my life, I immediately remembered my thought process in the time that I had made that choice to have multiple abortions. And so as the show started to go off the air, I made it through and I got off the phone and I immediately called Kathy. She wasn't on the air that day. I was interviewing this particular person by myself, and I was overwhelmed, and I was in tears, and I was shocked. And I said, Kathy, you are not going to believe what I just heard. And I went on to share with her what I had found out and discovered in that interview.
Now, Kathy, you weren't on the air that day with Lisa, and so as a result, you didn't have that epiphany moment right then. So how did you get involved in this project after that?
Well, when Lisa called me, Lisa and I go way back, first of all. Let me say that. Lisa and I have been in each other's lives at times of crisis. And she's been a huge support in my life and helped me see some things clearly, especially deception in my own life when I was in major crisis. And we have a very deep bond. And she knew that I would care about what happens in her life, the epiphanies that happened in her life, because we're very different. We have very different backgrounds, but our hearts are the same, you know?
Yes.
So she told me about Dr. Bernard Nathanson, and I was absolutely blown away. While she's talking, probably within 60 seconds, I had my laptop out and I was doing research. I was pulling him up on the internet, and I thought, why haven't I heard about this man? I've always been pro-life. I grew up in an evangelical home. I have never thought that abortion was something that should be an option, and I'd never heard of him. And so I started researching him. I cared about, and then she started thinking, I need to write this. This story needs to be told. And so she brought me in on that. I was sort of editing for a little while, and she calls me one day and says, Kathy, you got it. You just need to do this with me. You know, and she's done that multiple times in my life, you know. I'm doing it because Lisa told me I have to do it. But it's been fascinating, and I have grown to have such an appreciation and compassion for people, Dr. Bernard Nathanson, myself, Lisa included, and many others that have been deceived into thinking that this is a solution.
So we talked at the beginning about the power of the story, and you've got 3 stories that are starting to weave together here. Dr. Nathanson's, yours Kathy, yours Lisa. So all of this is coming together in this book. And this book is going to save lives, change hearts and minds. I believe that very firmly.
Yes.
What do you see, Lisa, as the key goal or goals of this book?
Well, I think the main goal is this, that all of our lives are affected by evil. That Satan weaves an evil web of lies and deceit and deception in our lives and in our thinking. And for people to look at this and say, well, I've never had any association with abortion. I've never known anyone that's had an abortion. In fact, I'm even pro-choice. I'd like to say to them, it affects everyone, because every single person on this earth has been deceived into believing a lie. But it begins in the womb. It begins with taking a life that's never had a chance to even be born or live. And all life is precious to God, whether it's in the womb, whether it's on your way to the tomb, whether it's people that are incarcerated, or the elderly that are in nursing homes, or the mentally ill. God loves every single person.
That's right.
And my passion is to help people understand that in order to break these lies and these bonds that hold us in our mind, that we have got to tell true stories, and we've got to be real, and we've got to expose how deceit can, yes, take you and derail you, but God's divine DNA that was originally inserted into you can never be disrupted. It can never be polluted. It is always there. And that if we turn our hearts back towards God, that He can change us. And the power in my life is that I experienced these things in a wide variety. And God not only has changed my life and turned it around, but He's allowed me to use that and to use that story to help other people get free themselves.
Absolutely. So clearly the purpose of this video is to be able to share the exciting news about this new book that you have put together, but also it's for you, the viewer, to want to read this book. Stories can change lives, stories can save lives, and you have an opportunity to partake of 3 stories that are woven together that have enormous potential. And so I would like to just close out by giving both of you the opportunity to answer this question. What do you think the reader, the person who's going to go and get this book, what will they get out of the book themselves, and why will they be excited about sharing it with other people? And Kathy, I'll let you start on that.
Well, first of all, I think people love a story.
Right.
These stories are really interesting. And when I read a book, I want to be captivated by the
Yes.
content. I don't just want facts, figures, or personal opinions. I want to see it lived out. So when someone picks up this book, they're not going to be able to put it down because these stories are fascinating. But also, what's unique about it is it explains through the stories and through some narrative along with the story how people can come into truth, how they can come into their original destiny. I mean, which of us out there wants to think we don't have a purpose? Everybody thinks they have a purpose, and so many of us are trying to figure out what that is. And this book really helps show how God will restore your original purpose. And so, once they read it, they're going to have hope for their lives, and they're going to want to hand it to other people to give them hope for their lives. And there's a lot of healing, too, in this book for those of us who have made really devastating choices.
Yes.
Yes.
And Lisa, your thoughts?
I think one of the most important things that I would like for people to get from this book is healing, and to know that it's never the end until they put you in the ground, and that God is in the business of doing miracles today. And if he can take a former prostitute and drug addict, a woman who had a nervous breakdown and survived sexual abuse, and a doctor who performed 75,000 or oversaw 75,000 abortions and then later converted to Catholicism, he can save anyone. And that's our biggest hope, is that it stirs up nothing but hope in other people's lives, that change is possible.
Absolutely. Well, with that, we want to encourage you, get this book as soon as you possibly can, devour it like I have done, and then be sure to share it with other people so that they too can be blessed by this experience. Stories are powerful, stories can change lives, stories can save lives.